All right, good evening, everyone. It is Schos Baruch Hashem to be able to prepare a little bit together for Purim. Begin by thanking our sponsors for tonight's shiur. To thank Fran Hissler for dedicating the shiur tonight in memory of her beloved grandmother, Chaya Sarah Bas Mani Zichron Levracha, maternal aunt, Malka Bas Avram, Miriam Bas Avram, and Nessa Chaya Sarah Bas Nochum Zichron Levracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah, the families in Nechama, and of course we thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor for Tafshin Pehei, the Tilsim Mishpach of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this year in the Zechus for Besoros Tovos for Am Yisrael. And indeed, we should Eretz Hashem be Zocha to see the rest of our hostages come home and to see our holy soldiers be successful. B'chol Ma'aseh Yedehem. Amen. So we're going to spend a few moments this evening in Eretz Hashem preparing for Purim. So the truth is, there were many things I wasn't sure exactly what to focus on for this year, because there really is so much. In general, Purim has so much. This year certainly has a lot. You may have noticed it's a bit more of a hectic Purim this year. And the whole idea, the confluence of events of Purim and Shabbos together is such a fascinating idea. In Eretz Yisrael, it's a Purim Meshulash. It effectively becomes 3 days of Purim, a tremendous, tremendous celebration. And even here in Chutz La'aretz, the notion of going from Purim, which is a day in which is so strange on many levels. Purim is a strange yontiv. Let's kind of begin with that baseline. Right? Purim is a strange yontiv, and it's a strange yontiv for a variety of reasons. It's a strange yontiv because at the end of the day, there are things that are permitted on Purim that are dramatically prohibited the rest of the year. Right? During the year, a man is not allowed to wear women's clothing, and a woman is not allowed to wear men's clothing. That is a biblical prohibition. And yet, amazingly enough, on Purim, somehow it's mutter. I'm not going to say encouraged, right? But mutter, right? Drinking. So obviously, again, we know that wine plays a very important role within Yiddishkeit. There is no life cycle event. If you think about it, there's no life cycle event that doesn't have wine. This is very important. From the time that a little baby boy comes into the bris milah, there's wine. Kiddush, Yom Tiv, Erisin, Yisuin, wedding. Interestingly enough, the Gemara brings down that there used to be a fascinating practice. In fact, the Gemara says, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create grapes? Right, in order to create wine. Wine for what? The Gemara says, Kos Shel Tanchumin, the cup of consolation. The Talmud records a fascinating practice, which was that after people came back from the cemetery from burying their loved one, they would give the mourners a very large cup of wine. And they would encourage the mourner to drink the whole cup of wine. Why? We understand why. Because one of the benefits of wine is the ability to take a little bit off the edge off of life's difficult circumstances. So wine is very much, right? Pesach is coming. I know, am I allowed to say that? Right? Pesach is, whether you want it tonight, Pesach is coming. Arba kosos, we have an obligation to drink 4 cups of wine. To the point that the Gemara says that even if you don't like wine, right? Even if wine's going to give you a headache, you don't really like wine, ideally one should try to push themselves to have wine. Wine plays a crucial role. But in Yiddishkeit, right, one of the most beautiful things in Judaism is Kadosh Baruch Hu encourages us to enjoy the world. But he encourages us to enjoy with moderation. Everything is about moderation. And yet comes Purim. What's the halacha by Purim? Mechayiv inish levasume bepuria adlo yada bein ar Haman lebarach Mordechai. A person should drink on Purim until they don't know the difference between blessed is Haman, or I should say cursed is Haman, and blessed is Mordechai. Now there's much halachic literature about that. What exactly does that mean? What state of inebriation? The halacha warns us intensely about getting to the level of what the Gemara calls shichruso shel lot drunk. What does it mean to get lot drunk? So we know what happens with Lot when he drank, right? He committed 2 acts of incest with his daughters. So lot drunk means to get so drunk that you literally can't tell between right and wrong. Even on Purim, that's prohibited. But yet, again, getting drunk, inebriation, drinking wine is encouraged on Purim. So it's a strange Yom Tov on so many different levels. And where you find such strangeness, there's also incredible and palpable profundity. So sometimes when it comes to Purim, it's hard to know even where to start. But I want to focus really on one pasuk in the Megillah, and from this one pasuk, build out a little bit of a construct about the Yom Tov, and I think a tremendous lesson for us as well. Let's take a look at source number 1. Source number 1. Vahi Omines Hadasa. So remember again, this is Parak Beis, 2nd chapter of Megillah Esther. 1st chapter of Megillah Esther is all about the story of Achashverosh and if anyone needs, are there sheets? Where are the sheets? If anyone needs our sheets up front, I'm sorry, all the way up here. Someone's going to have to make the walk. Someone's going to have to make it. Okay, thank you, Devorah. Okay, incredible. Good. So remember, first chapter of the Megillah is dedicated to the story of Achashverosh and Vashti. Okay, then second chapter, Achashverosh launches his entire beauty pageant, and now the Megillah introduces us to Esther. Now understand, in general, Esther, we spoke about this, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. Esther is a mysterious figure. She's incredibly mysterious. So mysterious that there's even a debate as to what her name was. Because in the Megillah, she's identified by two names. She's identified as Esther and Hadassah. And there's a dispute in the Gemara, which is her real name and which is her descriptive name. It's so strange. Esther is the heroine of the story, right? Esther is really the primary architect of salvation. And yet again, we're not even sure exactly what her real name is. It's fascinating. So the pasuk says as follows: Vahi oenes Hadassah. So we're introduced. Now the truth is, the introduction over here is not to Esther. The introduction actually is to Mordechai. Now Mordechai is well known to us. Why is Mordechai well known to us? Because Mordechai was a member of the Sanhedrin. How do we know that Mordechai was a member of the Sanhedrin? Well, first of all, we have Masor, the Navi tells us, but also because the Megillah says, Asher hagla im hagola asher glasa im hamelech Yechanya. So remember again, Mordechai was exiled with Yechanya. Yechanya was the king of Yehuda. When the Jewish people were exiled, the king was exiled with primary Jewish leadership, which means if you were exiled together with the king, you were one of the top people. So Mordechai is exiled in the first wave. So Vahi omenes Hadassah. So Mordechai is raising Hadassah. Who's Hadassah? He Esther bas Dodo. She was Esther, literally again, his uncle's daughter. Ki ein la avaim. Esther didn't have a mother or father. And again, Esther herself was very beautiful. Again, Yifas Toar, Tovas Mara, we find similar Lashonos by Rachel and Leah as well. Again, not our topic for tonight, but she was very beautiful. And when her parents died, Mordechai took her as a daughter. So the pasuk from the beginning is strange, right? Let's go through it. What's strange? Number one, what's strange? I'll give you a hint. I said the first thing already. What's strange? Right, so first of all, what's her name? Is it Esther or Hadassah? Because it's not clear from the pasuk. Vahimanas Hadassah, he Esther. So two names, one name, both names. So that's number one. Number two, what else is problematic about the pasuk? Right? It's profoundly redundant. Think about this. Vahimanas Hadassah, Esther Bastaldo. Mordechai is raising Esther. Omein, by the way, is almost like a lashon of like when Moshe Rabbeinu complains about Klal Yisrael, right? You know, it's interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu was the tremendous advocate and defender of Klal Yisrael. But every leader has their breaking point where they say, you know what? I cannot do this anymore. And Moshe Rabbeinu has a moment like that. Remember again, when he turns to Kadosh Baruch Hu, he says, I don't understand. Am I like their mother? Kashayisa omein es hayonek. Am I like a nursing mother who constantly has to carry around her baby? Moshe Rabbeinu loses with Klal Yisrael. So omein means really an adoptive parent. So the beginning of the passage, he tells us that Mordechai is raising Esther as an adoptive parent. Why? Ki ein la avaim. And then the end of the pasuk says, and when her father and mother died of Mordechai took her. You just said that. You already told us. You told us in the beginning of the pasuk that Mordechai is raising Esther as an adopted parent. Why do you have to repeat it at the end? So first of all, number two, the Gemara Maseches Megillah points out, the Gemara asks this question. Ki ein la avaim. So again, if you're telling me that Mordechai is raising Esther, then bepashtos, right, it's understood that she doesn't have a mother or father. Because if she had a mother or father, then what? Then her mother or father would be raising her. So why do you have to say it? So the Gemara highlights over here, Mos Avia V'ima, Lamali, Amar Vacha, Ibarta, Meis Aviha. After Esther's mother, again, whose identity we don't know in the Megillah, when Esther's mother became pregnant, Esther's father passed away. Uyavarata Meis Ima. And either during childbirth or immediately after childbirth, Esther's mother passed away. So the Gemara is highlighting over here, Ki ein la avaim. You see, the beginning of the pasuk tells us, or I should say, the beginning of the pasuk tells us that Mordechai raised her. Then the pasuk goes on and says, Ki ein la avaim Esther Hamalka never met her parents. She never met her parents. Father died while her mother was pregnant, and her mother died either in childbirth or shortly after childbirth. So first of all, even before we go on, it's interesting, right? It's interesting. We always like stories, and we like knowing people's stories. But at the end of the day, what exactly is the Megillah trying to convey to us? So I think just off the bat, I want to say, I think the Megillah doesn't get its fair. It doesn't get like its moment. Why? Because think about this. First time we read the Megillah, Thursday night. How are you feeling Thursday when we're reading the Megillah? Come on, you can say it. The Baal Korah needs to go faster. The guy needs to move faster, right? We're hungry. We switched the clocks already. It's time, right? Let's go. And then in the morning, okay, so depending on what situation you're in life, right? Often we're trying to go ahead and fit in Megillah somewhere, somehow. We blow through it. It's 9 chapters. It's a long Megillah. And the truth is, we lose out on so much of the profundity. But the truth is, we content ourselves with, okay, I know the story. I know the general story. But there's so many layers to it. So for example, what is the Gemara teaching us? Esther's mother became pregnant and her father died. And then her mother gave birth and her mother died. Esther never met her parents. So what's the message? Right out of the gate, what is the Gemara telling us? You can't choose the circumstances of your upbringing, but you absolutely choose the kind of person you want to be. We often think that if you didn't have the right upbringing, I didn't have parents who loved me, I didn't have this, this was Sigmund Freud's big thing, right? That everything in life is based on your relationship with your parents. Now, it's true. Our relationship with our parents has a dramatic effect on us. How we were raised, the type of parenting we had, a loving home, a nurturing home, a not loving home, not nurturing home, has tremendous effects. But at the end of the day, one thing that Yiddishkeit does is rejects the notion of victimhood. We reject the idea that somehow just because you have it tough, that's an excuse not to perform. That just because you have difficult circumstances, that allows you not to self-act. Oh, you had it tough? You had it tough? Okay. Take the rest of life off. You just relax. You had a tough childhood, you had a tough this, you had a tough that. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything because you've had such a difficult time in life. It's sad when people have a difficult time in life. And it's tragic when people do not receive the love and nurturing of a warm home. But lest you think for a moment that exempts a person from accomplishment and self-actualization who had it tougher than Esther. And by the way, when you think about it in the grand scheme of her story, this isn't even the toughest part of her story. Esther's story, we'll get into it more, Esther's story is an overwhelming one. But just understand, talking about a young woman who never even got to meet her parents. Not only that, but remember, the Lashon over here, who's raising her? It's interesting to see. Mordechai's raising her. What's Mordechai's relationship to Esther? Uncle. Right? Now, remember, right, it says his uncle's daughter. It's Mordechai's uncle's daughter, right? He's not her uncle, right? It's Bas Dodo. Esther is the daughter of Mordechai's uncle. So which tells you also that what? That's the closest relative she has. This is the closest person in her life to be able to take care of her? Maybe yes. Like I said, the Megillah is a storybook, but it still doesn't give us all of the details. But just to point out of the gate, what a tremendously tragic life Esther had. Yet with all of that tragedy, she kept it together and she moved herself forward. Okay, so Pashat Pshat, as we see in the Megillah, again as echoed in the Gemara number 2, is that Mordechai raised Esther as an adopted father. But the Gemara number 3 has a different approach. Ubemosa via v'ima, lakcha Mordechai lo lebas. Tanam Mishum Rabbi Meir, al tikri lebas ela lebayis. No. Don't read it that Mordechai took her as a daughter. Rather, again, read it that Mordechai took her as a home. Now, the Gemara, what does that mean? So the Gemara says, a beautiful Gemara. Gemara goes one of the Tanaim who says, Miyamai lo karasi li ishti. I never called my wife. Rather, ela karisi li ishti basi. I called my wife my home. Now, there's many beautiful layers of understanding of that. about what it means to have a happy, healthy marriage, and how a happy, healthy marriage really just requires a synergistic partnership between a husband and wife. The externalities, what the physical home looks like, what the physical trappings of life are not as important. Where's home? Where's home? Home is where your spouse is, right? Home is where your bashert is. That's where home is. So therefore the Gemara says something amazing. The Gemara says when the pasuk reads, Lakacha Mordechai lo lebas, the Megillah doesn't mean he took her as a daughter, but rather what? Lebayis. He took her as a wife. So first of all, again, we're familiar with this machlokes, but it's a tremendous machlokes. What was the relationship between Mordechai and Esther? Was it adopted father and daughter, or was it husband and wife? And obviously, again, that distinction allows you to see the story in two dramatically different ways. But what's fascinating to see is, you see this, right? And what's your first thought? Right? Okay, so now this is machlokes. What's your first thought? I'll take your second thought also. Third thought.
Now my first thought is, well, that she wasn't a maiden if she was a bai.
Right, correct, good. I'll tell you even simpler. Just tell us. Like, why shroud this story in ambiguity? Why do that? Remember again, this is not Chumash. In Chumash, the Ribono Shel Olam purposely leaves things ambiguous because there are many different things to be learned out from the ambiguity. This is the Megillah. This is Ksuvim. So Ksuvim is supposed to be read and understood just as it is. Why obscure such a fundamental detail of the story? Now, maybe you'll say, because it doesn't really impact the story at the end, but it does. It does. Understanding the relationship between Mordechai and Esther, I think, is such an important cog in the wheel of understanding Purim, of understanding the Megillah. So why shroud it in ambiguity? Why not just tell us he's raising her as a daughter or they're married? It's one or the other. Just come out and tell it to us. So obviously, if it's ambiguous by design. The Ribono Shel Olam, remember again, Esther, we spoke of this on Shabbos a little bit, Esther was written in Ruach HaKodesh, with prophecy. Right, it was written by Esther Hamalka. Gemara Megillah Maseches Megillah recalls that Esther said, Kisvuni Ledoros, I want my story to be preserved as part of Tanakh. The Chachamim, the rabbis of the generation said, we can't. Because again, you're going to create animosity with the nations of the world. Because after all, the Jews won. No one likes it when Jews win. Right? It's going to create a lot of animosity. So Esther said, don't worry about it. They already have this story recorded in their annals of history. They already have it, so don't worry about it. Esther wrote Megillas Esther. How did she write it? Ruach HaKodesh. How do we know it was written by Ruach HaKodesh? How do you know it was written with the spirit of prophecy? How do we know that? Because there are details here that Esther could not have known. Right? How would Esther know the ins and outs of the story of Achashverosh and Vashti? Assuming Achashverosh did not share it with her. Right? How did Esther know what was in Haman's heart? How did Esther know the night that Achashverosh couldn't sleep? All these different things. So Esther was written by Ruach HaKodesh. So just tell us explicitly, husband and wife or father and daughter. Just tell me the bottom line and let's move forward. But obviously, if it's ambiguous by design. The Ribono Shel Olam is trying to teach us some type of lesson to be gleaned from really the synergy of these two relationships. So I want to show you something amazing. Take a look at number 4. This is from a sefer, Tal Lechaim. Tal Lechaim was written by a great Makubal, and actually it's his picture here of Chaim Cohen Farchia. I know he doesn't look like a Makubal. He was known in Eretz Yisrael as the Chalban. The Chalban was known as one of the greatest Mikubalim of his generation. A fascinating figure. Never wore like a frock, or didn't have a beard or payas or anything like that. He worked in the Tenuva factory in Givatayim and was literally again one of the tzaddikim this time, one of the hidden tzaddikim of our generation. So his Torah was preserved in a set of svarim called Tal Lechaim. Look what he writes here. This is incredible. He says, if you look at the title here, so it's a little bit of a longer piece. We'll go through it together, but you'll see it'll change your entire conception of the Megillah. Beis Bechino Shal Kesher. So the Chalban, he was known, by the way, as the Chalban. What does Chalban mean? Chalban means a cheesemaker, right? Cheesemaker, right? Guy who makes cheese, right? The Chalban, that's how he was known, it's by his profession. So the Chalban writes as follows. There are two different types of relationships. Look what he writes. Hine Yadua, source number 4. Shakesha ben ish leisha, hu kesher bechiri. A relationship between a husband and a wife is a volitional or voluntary relationship. Shebo ha'ish rotze be'isha, va'isha rotze be'ish. A man wants to marry a certain woman, the woman wants to marry the man. V'asu mekadesh also lo li'isha. Ha'ish va'isha bachru me'ertzonam litzur es kesher beinehem. So the only way that, of course, marriage works is if husband wants it and wife wants it. Both parties have to consent. Mishum kach, kesher ze gam toel be'ertzonam. Therefore, the longevity of this bond is also dependent on their will as well. That's why, again, if they want to dissolve the marital bond, they can do that also. It is a voluntary union. They come to it voluntarily, and they can dissolve it voluntarily. Husband gives his wife a get, and it dissolves the marital bond. So therefore he says, as beautiful as marriage is, there's an inherent weakness in the bond. What's the inherent weakness in the bond? It's voluntary. It's voluntary. In other words, that ultimately, in order for it to occur and in order for it to be sustained, both parties have to want it. And as we know, people sometimes change their minds. And something I wanted, X number of years ago, I may not want now. Olevi orate. Human desire goes up and down. It can undergo many changes. So therefore, again, any type of relationship that is voluntary always has an inherent danger in it. What's the danger? That the people involved may decide we no longer want this. Okay? So the same way that, again, it only occurs if it's voluntary, it's also only sustained if it's voluntary. And the moment that the parties don't want it, it's the moment that the relationship dissolves. Second paragraph, number 4. Lubas zeh. But yet there's another type of relationship. There are other relationships that have nothing to do with choice. Nothing to do with choice. They come, rather, again, from divine providence. No, not by choice. Sodan haga lokis asher kava moste eretz v'chag kamudel v'asher hayusa kshar misyamim be'pu'ula askava v'lo b'maisa adam v'tach belosav. Second category of relationships, nothing to do with choice. They are orchestrated and choreographed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's an example of this? Echad akshar malalu ha'kesher ha'achva ha'kesher bein achim. Your siblings, and again, it's your parents. Your siblings, right? Many of us know this quite acutely, right? You don't choose your family. Right? So at the end of the day, this is a bond that's there. It's created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Brothers, he's using brothers as an example. Brothers are bound to each other without any choice. Zekesher biologi muchrach. It's a biological connection that's definitive. Ach yishaer tamid ach. A brother always remains a brother. Even if brothers hate each other, they despise one another, they're always fighting. Guess what? No matter what, they're still brothers. Nothing can dissolve the bonds of family. Zoe avoda chakuka me'es Hashem shebechiras ha'adam ein yechol lishnosa b'me'uma. So this is very interesting. So the Chabad highlighting two different types of relationships. What we'll call voluntary relationships and divinely choreographed relationships. Voluntary relationships, the paradigmatic example of that, marriage. A man chooses a woman chooses a man, they decide to get married. If they choose to no longer stay married, there's a mechanism to dissolve that relationship as well. And once that's dissolved, they're no longer connected. One type of relationship, divinely choreographed relationships, those are relationships that you're in forever. You like each other, you don't like each other, you get along, you don't get along, it doesn't make a difference. The achva, the togetherness, the relationship, by definition, is set in stone and simply immutable. Now the Chabad makes an amazing observation. He says, there's strengths and weaknesses to both of these relationships, right? So think about this for just a moment. In terms of the relationships that you choose, what's the strength? What's the strength of that relationship? You chose it. That's a big thing. When you choose a relationship in life, that means I am invested in. See, if you think about it, with your siblings, right, out of the gate, you're not invested in the relationship with your parents. You're not invested. Investment comes later on. But when I'm born into this world, okay, this is my brother, this is my sister, these are my parents. I'm not invested. I'm placed here. There's zero investment. Then the goal, of course, is to create investment in that relationship as time goes on. But at least initially, there's no investment. It's a de facto, divinely choreographed relationship. But let's say, for example, of a marriage, there's investment. I chose you, you chose me. So suddenly, again, we're invested in this. So there's a maila in that. There's a strength in that. What's the weakness of marriage? What's the weakness of it? You could change your mind. It could be undone. It's not an unchangeable bond. It's not an immutable bond. So on one hand, the strength is I chose it. Therefore, I have this tremendous amount of investment. The weakness, because I chose it, I can also unchoose it. On the other hand, the relationship I have with my family, what's the strength of that bond? Strength of it? Immutable. You can't change it. You can't change it. What's the weakness of it? You didn't choose it. You didn't choose it. So isn't this fascinating? So the relationships you choose, the strength is your investment through choice. The weakness, you can undo it. Family, the strength of that relationship, no matter what, you can't undo it, but at the same time, you didn't choose it. So because I didn't choose it, therefore there's a certain lack of investment in that relationship. Look at the last paragraph in source number 4. MS. Now the Chalban says it straight out. He says, Yeshno chisaron b'kesher zeh, shu kesher muchrach shelo nasa b'bchiras adam. So as beautiful as this relationship with family is, this immutable relationship, this immutable, unchangeable relationship, because again, there was no bechira, right? There was no bechira, there was no choice. Adam margish shaychus ledvarim shu ba'atzmo bachar b'yatza. This is such a profound line. People feel the greatest amount of connection to the things that they choose. We don't feel the same amount of connection to the things that are essentially, I'm going to use the term, foisted upon us. The things that I did not choose, but like HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose for me, those things I feel a lot less connection to. By the way, using the marriage example, that is why, again, there is a different dynamic in a healthy marriage than in any other relationship in life, for one simple reason. I chose it. I chose it, right? Think about this just a moment. Even children, do you choose your children? Like, no way, right? No, we don't choose our children, right? Again, Baruch Hashem, our children, greatest matanas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses who my child is going to be. The one relationship in this world that you actually choose, that is your choice and your choice alone, is the person you choose to spend your life with. That's the one choice. That's why, again, that relationship is so incredibly unique. That's the beauty, that's the profundity of it. The weakness of it, however, is because I chose it, I can unchoose it. Family is beautiful, immutable relationship, but no investment. I didn't choose it. And so because I didn't choose it, therefore what? The level of investment often is not the same. He says, Zeu hayofi hamyucha benisuin. Here the Chabban says it. This is what is beautiful about marriage. Shena'asim bebechiras ha'ish va'isha ba'atzmam. A man and woman choose it on their own. V'lo nikba'u lahem shelo bertzonam. And it was not established for them without their consent. Umikol makom yish ma'ila gam lekesha muchrach. But there is also something profound to what we'll call a divinely choreographed and orchestrated bond. Shu kesher v'yatziv she'ena nitan le'irur. Again, in your family, no matter, like we said before, no matter what happens, your family is still your family. V'romeis ala kesher al kiyan. Okay, so let's pause here for just a moment. So what does this have to do with anything? So perhaps this is what's unfolding in the Megillah, right? The greatest mystery in the Megillah, right? One of the most, I don't know, at least I find, the most troubling piece in the Megillah is the relationship between Mordechai and Esther. And I just want to point out, this is so important. Think about this in just a moment, right? We fast forward to the end of the Megillah. I don't want to ruin the end of the story for you, right? But again, Baruch Hashem, Haman's defeated, the Jews succeed, and what happens? How does the Megillah end? Va'ir Shushan, well, it doesn't end this way. Va'ir Shushan Salah v'samecha. Everyone's happy, right? And what do we do at the end of the Megillah? What do we do at the end of the Megillah? We close the Megillah, Shoshan and Yaakov, it's great. And everybody's celebrating. And you know, it's interesting. Everyone is celebrating at the conclusion of the Megillah except for who? Esther. at least I think, the heroine of the story is locked in a marriage to a man she did not choose, is locked in a life that she did not choose. But to understand the profound pain of Esther, I need to understand the relationship to Mordechai, because it's two different narratives. There's a difference between a daughter plucked from her father's home, forced to marry a man that she did not choose, and a wife plucked from her husband's home, forced to marry another man who she did not choose. And it's two dramatically different narratives. Two dramatically different narratives. I think what the Chabad is trying to teach us is as follows, that the ambiguity is by design. Why? The Sfarim bring down something amazing. The Sfarim bring down that the relationship between Mordechai and Esther is supposed to be a metaphor for the relationship of Klal Yisrael. Right? Remember again, when Mordechai tells Esther that she has to go to Achashverosh, she has to supplicate on behalf of the Jewish people. And Esther, remember again, Esther at first says, right? Mordechai says, you have to go to Achashverosh, you have to plead for us. What does Esther initially say? No. She says no, right? She really says no. And Mordechai gives her a significant Musar Shmuz. Okay, if you don't want to, look, God doesn't rely on us for anything. He's giving you the opportunity to be the architect of salvation. If you pass on that, okay, salvation will come from somewhere else. Don't worry about it, Esther. And when Esther finally says, okay, I'll go, what does she say? One simple request. Lech kinos eskol haYehudim. Lech kinos eskol haYehudim. Gather everyone together. Gather everyone together. Esther understood. Esther, in a conversation with Mordechai, understood that the success of Klal Yisrael is fundamentally dependent on our ability to come together in a sense of achdus, of unity. So how do we accomplish national unity? How does achdus is one of those things we always like to talk about, but like practically, how does one create a sense of achdus? So what's incredible is the Chabad is suggesting that Mordechai and Esther, as the metaphoric representation of Klal Yisrael, teach us how to achieve achdus. Achdus is achieved when we treat each other like siblings and spouses. Siblings and spouses. Now what does that mean? You're a member of Klal Yisrael. How do you become a member of Klal Yisrael? Two ways, right? Either you're born to a Jewish mother, or you convert. Either way, right? Whatever your entry ticket was. Once you're in, you are suddenly connected to every single member of Klal Yisrael. Every single Jew. I want to explain what every single Jew means, right? Every single Jew doesn't just mean the people in your carpool, right? Every single Jew doesn't just mean the people in your block, or the people in your shul, or the people who look like you and dress like you and practice like you. Every single Jew means every single Jew. So every single Orthodox Jew, Reconstructionist Jew, Reform Jew, gay Jew, straight Jew, every Jew you want to find under the sun, they're your brothers and your sisters, right? And that is a de facto reality. You like it, you don't like it, just like you may like your siblings, you may not like your siblings. Guess what? Makes no difference. You know why? Because they're your siblings. When you're Jewish, every single member of Klal Yisrael is your brother and sister. And by definition, there is an incredible and profound connection. But it's not enough to just treat every Jew like your sibling. You have to treat them like your spouse. Now, I'm going to explain that one a little bit, right? What does it mean to treat them like your spouse? That in your marriage, right, if a person says, imagine for a moment in a marriage, a person says, you know what, I don't like this marriage, but I've been here long enough, 120 is around the corner, I'm just going to stick it out, make it till the end, right? That's terrible, right? Not going to be a very good and meaningful relationship. Marriages work because people want to be there. Marriages work because people believe in the union, because people believe that the marriage has something to give each other and they have something to contribute. We have to treat each other like siblings also. It's true. Every Jew is one of my brothers and sisters, and therefore by definition, whether I like it or not, I'm part of this collective family. But it's not enough to be like siblings, you have to be like a spouse. That I love you because I want to love you. I want to be in this relationship. I want to be part of this union. It's not just, come on, we got to get it together because we're related and we have no choice but to get along. I want a marriage with Klal Yisrael. I want a marriage with every Jew. I want to have that relationship like a husband and wife has, which is beautiful and meaningful and passionate because both parties truly want it with all of their hearts. That's what it means to be part of Klal Yisrael. That's what it means to have achdus. To not only feel duty-bound to have love for your fellow Jew because they're your brother and sister, but to actually want that relationship with your fellow Jew, like a spouse. And perhaps that's what's unfolding in the Megillah over here. There is orchestrated or choreographed ambiguity. Are Mordechai and Esther like father and daughter, like conferred relationship? Or are they husband and wife, chosen relationship? And what's the answer? Yes. Because if we peel back all of the layers, what is Purim all about? What is Purim all about? So if you want to understand what Purim is all about, it's very simple. How do we celebrate the day? Mishloach manos ish l're'ehu, matanos le'evyonim. The entire avoda of Purim is achdos. The entire avoda of Purim is the creation of strong and beautiful bonds. That's why, again, I know in our show, people are tired of me always saying it already, but I say it every year at least 5 times. When you're deciding who to give shalach manos to, don't give it to your friends. Don't give it to your friends. Your friends know that you love them, and they know that you mean a lot to them. And chances are, if you just give them a lot of stuff, let's be honest, the cleaning women love Purim more than anything, right? Because day after Purim, they're walking out with bags of your shalach manos. But instead, don't give to your friends. Give to the person who you're not friendly with. Give to the person with whom you've had a falling out with. Give to the person you have a strained relationship with. And by the way, maybe that's members of your own family. Or maybe it's people on your block. Or maybe it's just people you just grew apart from. That's what Purim is about. That's what Purim is all about. The entire avoda of the day is to give other Jews gifts, to give matanos le'evyonim. The rest of the year, someone comes over to you and asks you for tzedakah. You have every single right to ask, tell me why you need it. Tell me why you need it. What are you collecting for? Who are you collecting for? What's your organization? And you have a right to say, I should give a lot, I should give a little, or you always have to give something. On Purim, the halacha is, Kol shaposhet yadu ever extends their hand and asks, you have to give, no questions asked. You can decide how much or how little. But if another Jew asks you for tzedakah on Purim, you have to give. What is Purim all about? Purim is all about achdus, because it's a simple, everybody tries to figure out what's the kunst to bringing Mashiach? What's the kunst to bringing Geula? Right? And it's incredible. We come up with so many different things, right? If you wear a bendela on your wrist or on your forehead, or you say Nishmas 73 times in 4 minutes, right? You go to the kosel for 15 years straight every single day. You can do all those things if you want. It's a little bit nutty, but you can do all those things if you want. At the end, it's very simple. We know the formula. We lost the Beis HaMikdash because of sinas chinam, baseless hatred. We get the Beis HaMikdash with avas chinam. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Just, what the difference is? I'd so much rather say Nishmas 73 times in 4 minutes than have to get along with people. It is so much easier just to take on Sefer Tehillim 4 times in an hour, right? Than it is to actually mend broken relationships. Hey, you want me to be nice? You want me to be nice? Like I should let someone go in front of me at the supermarket? Or let someone go first when they're coming out, or maybe not honk the horn in the person behind carpool, or maybe if you're carpooling, not triple park, right, on a regular street. Again, it's so much easier. Just let me do something else. I don't want to be a mensch. I don't want to have to get along with people. Give me anything else, but don't make me focus on relationships. So we find every skula under the sun, right? We love skulas. Do you know why people love skulas? Skulas are like cliff notes for spirituality. I don't know, does anybody use cliff notes anymore? I don't know, whatever. I used it when I was in school.
I used to.
You used to, okay, good. All right, 2 of us, right? So again, it's like the cliff notes, because I don't want to do the hard work. By the way, it's the same way. It's the same way that everybody loves the inspirational videos, right? Inspirational videos are great. Raise your hand if you've changed your life because of an inspirational video. And if you raise them, I'm going to tell you to put it down because you're lying, right? Why? Nobody changes their lives because of inspirational videos, right? Inspiration comes, inspiration goes. It's action, and it's sustained action, and it's an overtime action that fundamentally changes us. But we love the quick fixes. We love the hacks. So we love the skulas for spirituality. But at the end of the day, it's hard work. You want to bring Mashiach, you want to bring Geula, you want to bring hostages, you want to bring an end to the war. Again, at the end of the day, it's one simple recipe. It's been the same recipe for 2,000 years. It's what Esther Hamalka said to Mordechai, and Mordechai says, you have to go and save the Jewish people. Esther says, I'll do it. If you can get Klal Yisrael together, then I'll do it. Lech Kinos Kol Yehudim. And the Megillah, from the beginning, even before we know anything about Haman, right? Haman's name really hasn't even been mentioned yet. Even before that, the Megillah is already giving us the recipe for success. How do we find success as a people? We have to treat each other like siblings and spouses. We have to, on one hand, recognize that we are connected at the soul, whether we like it or not. But it's not enough just to be in this relationship through compulsion. I want to be in this relationship because I want this relationship. I want to be connected to you. And you need to want to be connected to me. When there's marriage, when there's sibling, and there's spouses, that creates the most incredible achdus in Klal Yisrael. And when there's achdus, we have everything. You know, just to understand how this theme goes through, we spoke about drinking before, just very quickly, then we'll move on to the next piece. Drinking, right? The Gemara says, how much do you have to drink? We mentioned this before. Adol Yada, Bein Arar Haman, Lebarach Mordechai. So you don't understand, cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai. What does that mean? Until you slur your words? Okay, that could be it. Just say kids. You can't talk normally. So the Chachmas Manoach in the back of Masechet Megillah says something amazing. He says in life, everyone has their Haman, everyone has their Mordechai. The Hamans are the people I don't like. Do you know why I don't like them? Because they've hurt me. Because they've taken advantage of me. And I just don't like them. Maybe for good reason, maybe not for good reason, but I don't like them. They're mean, they're nasty, they're not nice, I don't like them. And then there are my Mordechais. You know who the Mordechais are? I also don't like them. You know why I don't like the Mordechais? Because they're richer than me. Because they're more successful than I am. Because they live in bigger houses. They drive nicer cars. It looks like they have better shalom bayis. Their children seem to really be on the derech. Those are my Mordechais. I don't like either of them. I don't like Haman and I don't like Mordechai. I don't like Haman because he hurts me. I don't like Mordechai because I'm so jealous of him to the core. So you know what the Gemara says? You got to see someone about that, right? And essentially, because therapy is expensive, the next best thing is a bottle of wine. Much less. But a little bit of wine, sometimes, you know what happens? It's an incredible thing. One of the most, Akash Baruch Hu programmed nature this way, right? People drink a little bit, and what happens? Everybody's in love with each other. Right? Amazing, right? People sit around a Shabbos table together, Yom Tiv table together, Fabreng together. And again, people who didn't know each other 2 minutes ago are so like the best of friends now. Chazal understood that sometimes the path to Achdus is lubricated with a lot of alcohol. Meaning that sometimes you just need a little bit to take the edge off so that you can have Achdus. So you see, by the way, everything on Purim. You know why we dress up on Purim? There's a lot, dress up? Because the whole idea is that those of us who don't get along with each other are able to finally make amends. Sometimes the easiest way to kind of walk up to someone who you've had a falling out with is if you're wearing a mask. Makes it a little bit easier. I could hide behind something a little bit, right? Because it's awkward. It's awkward, especially if I'm the offending party. It's awkward to go over to someone and say, I'm sorry, or can we start again? So you know what Akash Baruch Hu did, Chazal did? They let you put on a costume. You know what the great part about the costume is? You know, when somebody walks in a costume, you can't be angry at someone in a costume. It's just a fascinating thing, right? And the sillier the costume, no matter what they did to you, you're like, all right, just come in, right? It's an incredible thing. Everything on Purim is about breaking down walls. Is about recreating and reforging relationships. Because at the end of the day, whether it's Achashverosh, whether it's Haman, whether it's Hamas, whether it's the Nazis, whoever it is, the antidote is always the same. And it's if we circle the wagons, if we become like siblings and spouses, then at the end of the day, we bring geula. So mishloach manos ish l're'ehu, matanos le'evyonim, drink until you don't ever see your Hamans and Mordechais. I just love everyone on Purim. On Purim, my goal is to drink enough so I love everyone. Some people need a little, some people need a lot, but that's the goal. When you feel in your heart, I love every Jew. When you can literally stand up at the Purim Suda and say, I could say, B'leiv Shalom, v'yahavta l're'acha kamocha, there is no one who I am excluding in my heart from that phrase, that is a successful Purim. If you can't say it, keep drinking. Keep drinking. Because it can't be part of your Purim is not over until you can stand up and say, I love every single Jew. And again, I can't stress every single, not the ones who you think are the Jews, right? Not the ones who you like are the Jews. Every single Jew. If your heart is filled with ava and achva for every single member of Klal Yisrael, that's Purim. If your siblings and spouses with every member of Klal Yisrael, that's Purim. But what this will conclude, what about our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So we know now for ourselves, right? For ourselves, that our goal is to be like siblings, because on one hand, there is a conferred relationship here, a choreographed relationship. You're born as a Jew or convert into Judaism. You're now related to everyone in Klal Yisrael, right? The goal is to not just rely on that relationship, but ultimately, again, to become like spouses. What about our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Is my relationship with Hashem like a sibling or a spouse? So I'll show you something amazing. If you take a look at number 5. So this is incredible. Towards the end of the Megillah, Parak Ches, Bayomahu. So this is after already, again, Haman was executed. Haman was hanged, his sons were hanged. And what happens? Bayomahu, Nosra Melech HaChashverosh L'Ester Malka, as based Haman Sorar HaYehudim. Achashverosh gives to Esther Haman's entire estate. Watch this. Mordechai balafnei hamelech. Who comes now? Who suddenly comes? Mordechai. Mordechai comes to the king. Why? Ki higida Esther mahula. Esther told Achashverosh literally the lashon mahula, what Mordechai was to her. What Mordechai was to her, right? It doesn't say that Esther just brought Mordechai. The wording of here is so profound. Esther brought Mordechai to Achashverosh because he said, Ki gida Esther said to Achashverosh, mahula. What Mordechai was to Esther. Now, what was Mordechai to Esther? What was he to Esther? Right? So, by the way, can you imagine this conversation? So again, if you go with the approach that essentially was a surrogate father, okay? Achashverosh, I want to introduce you to Mordechai. He raised me like a father. Unfortunately, my mother died. My father died when my mother became pregnant. My mother died in childbirth, and Mordechai really took me in. Okay? Incredible. Thank you, Mordechai. You did such a great job. Thank you for raising such a wonderful young woman. Okay, shkayach. Good. What about the second version of the story? Right? Ki gida Esther mahula. Achashverosh, I want to introduce you to someone. Right? This is my husband. Right? This is my husband. Right? Mordechai. We were happy. We were having a good life. We were fine. And then pretty much you kidnapped me, brought me to the palace, and I'm now your wife. Right? So, right, and one of those two stories, so imagine the second version. So you would think, so imagine Esther says to Achashverosh, I was married, Mordechai was my husband. What would you have thought Achashverosh would have said?
Kill him.
Right? Kill him possibly. Or at least, my bad, sorry, mistakes happen. If you notice, by the way, there's no response. Why? Because you know what the great part about being king is? What you take is yours. And it doesn't matter who it belonged to. And it doesn't matter where it came from. And it doesn't matter where it originated. Once it's yours, it's yours. So whether Esther told Achashverosh, this was my father, this was my husband, Achashverosh probably didn't even listen. Do you know why? He could care less. You're my wife. I took you, and you're mine. Why is this important? Take a look at number 6. A beautiful medrash. The medrash writes, Shalom Melech Achashverosh, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Levi b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Kol makom shenemar b'Megillah zu lemelech Achashverosh, lemelech Achashverosh kasam medaber, v'chol makom shenemar lemelech stam mashma kodesh achol. Listen to this. The medrash writes, wherever it says in the Megillah, ultimately just Melech. When it says Melech Achashverosh, that's a reference to Achashverosh. When it just says Melech by itself, That's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? This is like the big thing, that the Ribbon Shalom's name is not mentioned in the Megillah, but it is. The Medrash says whenever you see the word Melech, king, without the modifier Achashverosh, that's a reference ultimately, again, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So now watch this. Go back up to number 5 for just a moment. Isn't it interesting? If you look in the beginning, of the pasuk, it says, Bayomo Nasana Melech Achashverosh, right? King Achashverosh gave to Esther the estate of Haman. And then what happens? The end of the pasuk, Mordechai ba Lifnei HaMelech. Doesn't say actually Lifnei HaMelech. Ki gida Esther mahu la. Esther told the king what he was to her. And perhaps what the pasuk is going to teach us is the following: that at the end of the day, the same way that a human king, when he takes something, it's his. Right? Achashverosh wasn't giving Esther back to Mordechai. Whether or not, again, she was his wife, not his wife, it doesn't make a difference. Even if she was his wife, even if they had a beautiful, happy, and blissful marriage, it doesn't matter. When the king takes something, it's the king's. This is also true with the Ribono Shel Olam. You know, a lot of times in life, we wonder about the nature of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because we mess up, we make mistakes, and some of us make tremendous mistakes. Some of us make tremendous mistakes repeatedly. Some of us make tremendous mistakes repeatedly daily. Right? Some of us make tremendous mistakes repeatedly daily and hourly. Right? We mess up, and we often wonder to ourselves, like, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu even interested in me anymore? Is he even interested in me? After everything that I've done, after all the wrong turns that I made, after all the different mess-ups that I've had in life, is the Ribono Shel Olam even interested in a relationship with me at all? And the Megillah comes along and says, U'mardechai ba lifnei hamelech ki yigida Esther mahu la. So Esther says to Achashverosh, this is my husband Mordechai. And Achashverosh essentially says, I don't care. You know why? Because you're mine. And the Melech, the Ribono Shel Olam, says the same exact thing. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a conferred relationship upon us. It is a de facto relationship. A relationship with God is not something you have to earn. A relationship with God is something that is yours by dint of the fact that you are a member of Klal Yisrael. And no matter what you do, no matter how many averos you commit, no matter how badly you mess up in life, no matter how many wrong turns, the king never lets go. Whatever belongs to the king remains the king. If there is one thing you could count on in this world, it is your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That doesn't mean Hashem's going to give you everything you want, how you want it, when you want it. But one thing is absolutely sure, which is that Ribono Shel Olam never checks out of the relationship. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always vested in this relationship. There is this de facto sibling-like relationship with Hashem. The same way, I like my brother, I don't like my brother, doesn't matter. I'm in this relationship and there's no way out of it. It's the same yisod with the Ribono Shel Olam. Just like the human king, whatever he takes, he does not give back. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us as his children, Banim atem la'Hashem Elokeichem, there's no out. There's no out. And what a comfort that is. You know, in human relationships, that's not true. Right? As we saw, in human relationships, you could fracture a relationship to the point, beyond the point of repair. It happens every single day. But in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's nothing you could do to make Hashem say, I'm done. No matter how badly we mess up in life, the relationship is always there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there. But, here's the but, it's not enough to rely on that type of relationship with Hashem. It's not enough to be a sibling, so to speak, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I need to be a spouse. I want to be in this relationship. I want to be inspired about this relationship. I want to be excited about this relationship. I want to contribute to this relationship. Like, what does every relationship need in order for it to thrive? Right? What does it need? Right? What does marriage need in order for it to thrive?
Money, work.
Right? Money, work. Good. I'm happy no one said love. Okay, well, maybe we should have a follow-up share. Okay, whatever it is, right? There's one word. Sacrifice. 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 You have to be willing to give things up of yourself for the other. The difference, and again, you know what the greatest challenge that people face today is? I don't want to sacrifice. I want to have everything, but I don't want to have to give anything up. You could do that if you want to be alone. But if you want a relationship, it's not just marriage, it's any relationship. Real relationships require sacrifice. I have to be willing to give things up because I believe in the longevity and the meaning of this relationship. And by the way, all those other things really fall under the umbrella of sacrifice. It's the same with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. On one hand, the Rebbe Shalom is like my brother. See, he's not going anywhere. He's vested in this relationship. We're together. No matter what I do, no matter how badly I mess up, we're still in this together. But I don't want to just be a brother to Hashem. I don't want to be like in a de facto conferred relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to be like a spouse. I want to be like a spouse. I want to be here in this relationship because I want it, because I'm excited about it. And therefore, I'm ready to sacrifice for it. I'm ready to do for it. I'm ready to give for it. I'm ready to push for it. I'm ready to do things that maybe I don't really feel like doing, but I know that they're the right thing to do for the relationship. Why? You know what relationships are all about? Relationships are, I don't know what relationships are all about, but if I had to guess, I would say relationships are all about doing things that make absolutely no sense to you, but it are important to the other. I'm avoiding eye contact with my wife as I say this, right? All about doing things for other people, for the other, like, I'm like, why is this important? Why is this important? I don't understand. This doesn't even make sense to me. Okay, that's fine. But you need it. You want it. So I'm here. I'm engaged. I'm doing it. And that's what relationships are. So with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's no different also. On one hand, nothing you could do can ever cause the Kadosh Baruch Hu to walk away. But I don't want that kind of relationship by itself. I also want to be in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to be the spouse of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to be enamored. I want to be passionate with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That requires sacrifice. That requires me to start doing the things that God asks of me, even though I don't really want to. I don't really feel like it. It's incredibly inconvenient. Some of it maybe doesn't even make sense, and a lot of it may not even be enjoyable. But I got to do it because it's important to the person or to the entity with whom I am in a relationship. You know, there's a beautiful song. There's an artist in Eretz Yisrael who I know all these things from my daughters. They put me on their Spotify playlist. So I get so there's an artist in Eretz Yisrael by the name of Ben Tzur. That's his name. See, he has a beautiful song called Emunah. I don't know if he's an observant individual or not, but his songs are very much like about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he has a line. And I just was listening to it today, and it struck me. Listen to the line. I'm not going to sing it. He said, "Ani od mikaveh ze kol ma sheratziti liyot." He says, you know, I yearn and I wish. There's only one thing I want in this world. To be kol ma sheratziti liyot, chaver hachi karov el Elokim. I want to be the closest friend to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to be the Ribono Shel Olam's best friend. I have to tell you, in my life, I never heard someone articulate it like this. Not that I want to be a good child, or I want to be a good servant, or I want to be a good this. I want to be the best friend. Ze kol ma sheratziti liot chaver hachi karov shel Elokim. I just want to be the best friend of Hashem. And that's it. That's the entirety of it. So if we bring this all together, Purim is just a magnificent and incredible day. And I'm happy we're doing this today, Wednesday, because Purim is probably going to be a little bit hectic this year. And there's a lot going on in Shabbos. Baruch Hashem, at least it's a little bit of a longer day, so maybe a little bit of time to get everything. But so much of maximizing Purim, like maximizing anything in life, is purposeful preparation, premeditated preparation before the event itself. Like, what do I want to do on this Purim? So number one, I want to fall in love with Klal Yisrael. That's my avoda. Right now, I am a sibling to every single Jew. Whether you like it or not, you're a sibling to every single Jew. But I want to, over Purim, become a spouse to every single Jew. I want to feel that sense of love, that sense of connection. I want to feel this idea that I'm in this relationship not because I have to, but because I want to. And all of the mitzvos of the day are there to facilitate that. Shalach manos, matanos le'avyonim, dressing up, su'uda, everything we have is all there, is all designed in order, right? Drinking, all there designed in order to get me to that level of becoming a spouse with the fellow members of Klal Yisrael. And after I do that with Klal Yisrael, because again, the order here is very important. You have to first accomplish this with your fellow Jew before you can accomplish it with God. For one simple reason. If you can't get along with people who you could look at, talk to, interact with, there's absolutely no way you could get along with a God who you cannot feel, touch, see, or totally perceive. So the first step, go from siblings to spouses with Klal Yisrael. And then after that, create that same dynamic with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I begin the Yom Tov of Purim knowing that I'm locked in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's a beautiful thing to be locked in. Because if I'm locked in, guess what? He's also locked in, which is incredible. He's locked in. The Rebbe Shalom, the King of Kings, is locked into a relationship with me, which means that no matter how much I mess up in life, he can't go anywhere. He's not going anywhere. He is vested in the relationship, but that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough to be a sibling. I want to be like a spouse. I want to fall in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to sacrifice for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want the relationship to be something beautiful, something different, something incredible, and something fulfilling. I want it to be, the one thing I want is to be that chaver hachi karov el Elokim. I want to be the best friend of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we could have this kind of Purim, where we go from siblings to spouses of Klal Yisrael, from sibling to spouse with the Ribono Shel Olam, could we even imagine the kind of geula we're going to have? Could we even imagine what is waiting for us? You know, we felt it, and we've felt it. Jews have felt it for the last 2,000 years, but we've certainly felt it since October 7th, the seismic shift of the earth underneath us. And the truth is, to a certain degree, we become a little bit desensitized to it because it's been over 500 days of this, so human nature is just we adapt and it becomes our new normal. But there is something dramatic and overwhelming unfolding right in front of our eyes, and it's not exactly clear what it is. And it's not clear exactly how it's all going to play out, but one thing is clear, which is there's an opportunity here for something dramatic. And if we're just willing to kind of get off autopilot and get out of cruise control a little bit and wake up and look around a little bit and realize that, oh my gosh, on this Thursday and Friday, what I could do with my relationship with my fellow Jew, what I can do with my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is of epic importance and epic value, then there is no telling what we could accomplish. We should be Zocheh Meretz Hashem to internalize these lessons of Esther and Mordechai. We should be Zocheh Meretz Hashem to transform all of our relationships from siblings to spouses. And in that zechus, we should be Zocheh not to go like Purim, because Purim was a Nes Nistar. Purim was a hidden miracle. Purim was a hidden geula. We don't want the hidden geula. Instead, what we're looking for is something much bigger. We're looking for an open geula, right? A supernatural geula. A geula of Mashiach, a geula of Beis HaMikdash, a geula of Tchias HaMesim, a geula of Besoros Tovos, a geula of Amach Hashem Dil Me'akal Par HaKadosh Baruch Hu dries our tears, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu mends all of our broken hearts, a geula that ushers in an unending wave of simcha and halavai if we each do our part. May we Zocheh Meretz Hashem to welcome that geula Mehira B'Yameinu. Amen.
Amen.